Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Welcome to our 25th lesson of our simplified Tajweed series, which is a series of Tajweed lessons introduced by Quran University uniquely designed Quran learning management system with the purpose of introducing Tajweed in a modern and easy approach. Through this series of lessons, you will be introduced to Tajweed rules using a unique, modern and innovative approach to teach Tajweed that utilizes the color codes of Mushaf al-Tajweed as a common denominator that links those lessons to Tajweed rules. With such approach, we aim to make the understanding of Tajweed rules much easier and to practically help you to apply those rules while reading the Quran. So our topic is compulsory med, in which we are going to learn about the definition of the compulsory med. We're going to learn about the two different forms of compulsory med, being in a word or in a letter, and we're going to take examples of the compulsory med and apply Tajweed rules on compulsory med upon tilawa and practice extracting cases of compulsory med from certain selected verses of the Quran. In our Quran learning management system, whether we're using the desktop version or the mobile version, in both cases we use the Ottoman script of Medina Mus'haf with Tajweed color codes. But before we proceed with today's lesson, let's revise what we have learned in the previous introduction to med about the different types of vowel lengthening, different types of med. We've mentioned that there is a primary med, which is lengthened naturally for 2 units, and anything that is lengthened beyond 2 units is called secondary med. And we have mentioned that the primary med itself has similar meds that are associated with it. There is the exchange, substitute, and lesser connecting meds, 3 types of med in addition to the primary, while the secondary med is further classified under 2 categories based on what causes the lengthening beyond natural, where it can be caused either by a hamza or by a sukoon. Those that are due to hamzas are 3. They are the attached, separated, and greater connecting med. Those that are due to sukoon are basically the compulsory med, the incidental sukoon med, and the soft lean med. So we've learned that there are 9 types of med, and we learned also that some scholars would also add a 10th type, they call it the differentiation med, while other scholars consider this type as a subdivision of the compulsory med. So they are either 9 or 10 in total. And in the introduction of med, we also talked about the colors association for the different types of med, and we said that there are 4 colors given to the med among the 8 colors used in Tajweed color legend in Mushaf al-Tajweed. And yet we mentioned that the primary med and its associated exchange and substitute are not given any of these unique colors. It's given only the black color, which is the natural color given for the normal script, because the vowels in these types of meds are expected to be naturally lengthened, not more than the natural 2 units of any vowel. One more type of med is also associated with the primary. It is the lesser connecting because it is extended for the same period of the primary, which is 2 units. So if you see a vowel written in black or brown, you should elongate it for only 2 units. Now, anything other than that, these 3 colors would be secondary med. So whatever is due to hamza is given the mandatory elongation of 4 to 5 units and given this red color. And the incidental sukoon and its cousin, the soft lean, are given the orange color, which is expected to be lengthened for an average of 4 units, ranging from 2 to 6. Now, the compulsory and differentiation are given the dark red, where it is compulsory to elongate those 2 types of meds for 6 units. Now in this lesson we're going to study the compulsory med, which is given the dark red color in Mushaf al-Tajweed, indicating a Tajweed rule of compulsory elongation med for 6 units, and this med is a type of the secondary med that is to be elongated for more than 2 units, which we call قواعد ألوان التجويد or Tajweed color legend, where every Tajweed rule is given a unique color code. Let's concentrate on this dark red color in this Tajweed color legend, and let's try to find it in this page of Quran, and try to find a med letter with this color, dark red color. We'll find the alif here in as-sakha. This alif is given a dark red color, indicating a compulsory elongation med for 6 units, and this is basically our lesson, which is the compulsory med. So the color related to the compulsory med in Mushaf al-Tajweed is this dark red color, as we have mentioned in al-haqqa. It is a compulsory med given the dark red color. Let's study the compulsory med a bit deeper and start by its definition. The compulsory med occurs when an original sukun is positioned after a med letter in the same word, whether upon continuing recitation or pausing it. And in order to explain that, we have to understand what we mean by original sukun. Sukun, which is the still status of a letter, can either be original sukun or it can be presented sukun. So what is the difference between those two types of sukun? The original sukun means a sukun that is part of the original makeup of the word, and thus it will always be persistent, regardless of whether we continue recitation through this letter or pause recitation upon reaching it. On the other hand, in the case of presented sukun, the sukun is not always there. It is occasional. It doesn't happen all the time. It is only presented on a letter only upon stopping or pausing recitation on that particular letter. And otherwise the letter is read with an original haraka when recitation is continued through it. So original sukun is always there, whether we continue recitation or pause on it. The presented sukun is not there. There is a haraka that if we pause on that particular word, then the sukun is presented. So it's an occasional status of stillness of sukun. Taking an example will illustrate that. We'll take وَلَضَّالِّينَ and let's concentrate on the letter following the med letter. In this case, the lam is basically a lam that has a shadda with a kasra, which is practically, this lam is practically two letters. First, a lam with sukun followed by a lam with a kasra. So shadda is actually two letters. The first one is with sukun, and accordingly it's an original sukun and thus should have the compulsory med rule applied on it. Now the next example is a tam. We'll realize here that there is a meme with a shadda. This meme is originally a meme with sukun followed by a meme with a fatha. The letter following the a is having original sukun. This shadda that we see here is practically two letters, the first one with original sukun. Another example is al-haqqa. If we look at the alif here, we'll find that the qaf following it has original sukun because it is part of a qaf with a shadda, which is actually two qafs. First one with original sukun followed by a qaf with a fatha. So the shadda has, as we've said, two letters, the first with original sukun. Now in all these cases, the original sukun is part of the shadda and thus accordingly should have the rule of compulsory med applied on it. And that hukum, that rule to be applied, is to have a compulsory elongation, a med, for 6 units. Let's now look at the occurrence of the compulsory med. The compulsory med occurs either in a word status or in a letter status. Accordingly, we can divide the compulsory med into two forms, one in a word and the second in a letter. The first one, the word compulsory med, is a med vowel occurring within a word, a kalima. That's why we call it kalimi, word based. And we have an example. At-tam is a word and the med happens within this word. Al-haqqa, the a has a med and this med occurs within a word. Al-haqqa is a word. On the other hand, the letter compulsory med occurs within letters, not words. And these letters happens usually at the beginning of the surahs, like in qaf, noon, alif, lam, ra. Now, the compulsory med is divided into two types, heavy lengthening in a word and a light lengthening in a word. And similarly, the compulsory med of the letters, the letter compulsory med is also divided into two types, a heavy lengthening within a letter or a light lengthening within a letter. So we have what we call maddun kalimiyun, kalima means word, muthaqqal, heavy, maddun kalimiyun mukhaffaf, light, mad in a word. And we have maddun harfi, letter means harf, harfiyun muthaqqal, heavy lengthening in a letter, and harfiyun mukhaffaf, light lengthening in a letter. Let's study the word compulsory med in more details. We realize the word compulsory med is divided into two types, the heavy and the light ones. So the word compulsory med has a heavy word compulsory lengthening and has a light word compulsory lengthening. We're going to take examples on each. We'll start by the heavy word compulsory lengthening or mad. It occurs when the original sukoon following mad letter is part of a shadda. The examples that we have given previously were all examples of heavy word compulsory lengthening or mad. We mentioned a and we've mentioned that the mad letter is followed by emphasized letter, a letter with a shadda, which has part of it a sukoon, original sukoon, and that's why we apply the compulsory mad on the letter. Now, another example was al-haqqa. Again, we have the qaf with a shadda that has part of the shadda as an original sukoon, and that's why we applied al-mad on al-haqqa as a compulsory mad. Now, we're going to move to the light word compulsory mad. In the heavy, it was always a shadda. In the light, there will be no shadda. So, it occurs when the original sukoon following the mad letter is not part of a shadda. As in al-ana. In here, the lam has a sukoon, original sukoon, but is not part of the shadda, as in the case of at-tamma or al-haqqa. Here, al-ana is having a original sukoon but is not part of a shadda. Now let's dig into the letter compulsory mad, which also has two types. The heavy one, heavy letter compulsory lengthening, and light letter compulsory lengthening. We'll start with the heavy letter compulsory lengthening, and let's look at the letter itself. Each letter is pronounced while being spelled as if it is built out of multiple letters. We're going to explain that in a minute. But for now, just remember that the last spelling letter is merged into the following letter in the case of heavy letter compulsory lengthening. Let's look at this example. Ta, Sin, Mim. In this case, we realize that there are three letters. So those three letters, they look simple. They are ta and sin and mim. But the way we pronounce them is like this. Each letter is actually pronounced with more letters. For example, the ta has two letters, and the end of the ta has a mad letter a. The sin has three letters, sin, ya, nun, and the middle of the sin there is a mad letter, the ya here, sin. And the mim, this mim, is practically pronounced as if there are three letters, and the middle letter of the mim has a ya, a mad letter ya. So we need to elongate the two yas, the ya in the middle of the sin and the ya in the middle of the mim. So they are both to be elongated, to be lengthened, to have mad. And this mad will look like this. Sin and mim. So sin, mim. But when we pronounce them, the rule applies of the nun sakina, the nun of the sin. The end of the sin has a nun sakina, and that is followed by a mim. Then we will be merging. We will apply idgham. It will be pronounced as sin, mim, not sin, mim, but sin, mim. The nun at the end of the sin is merged, is having idgham into the following letter, mim. This idgham makes this letter compulsory mad heavy. Sin, mim. But if there is no idgham, then the lengthening, the mad would be of the light type. So the light compulsory lengthening, the spelling letter is not to be merged into the following letter. And the example is Yasin. And in Hamim or Ain, Sin, Qaf. And another example of the light letter compulsory lengthening is Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ain, Sad. In these cases, the Ain, as in here, and the Sin, and the Qaf, each has three letters that has a mad, and we lengthen all of those, but there is no merging. The noon is not merged in the sin. The noon here is not merged in the qaf. And since there is no merging, we call this light letter compulsory lengthening. So the noon at the end of the ayn, this noon at the end of this ayn, is not merged into the following sin. This noon is not merged here. And similarly, the noon at the end of the sin, the noon at the end of the sin, this one, is not merged into the following qaf. So in this case, we perform the letter compulsory mad, but this type is of the light type, not the heavy one, because the heavy one has the merging, the idgham. The light one has no merging, no idgham. Let's take now a few more examples of compulsory mad. We'll start with the compulsory mad in a word, and we're going to take a light example, a light one. Al-ana. In this case, the a happens within a word. Al-ana is a word, and it has the mad letter a, and there is no shadda following the a. The lam letter has a sukoon. Based on that, we have a light compulsory lengthening within a word, and it is compulsory to elongate this a for 6 units. Al-ana. Now the second example is al-haqqa, which is a heavy type of compulsory mad example, where we have the a here, followed by a qaf with a shadda, which we said that the shadda has an original sukoon as part of this qaf being 2 qafs, qaf with sukoon and qaf with fatha. And accordingly, we consider this as a heavy compulsory lengthening within a word. Al-haqqa is a word, and we pronounce it as al-haqqa. Al-haqqa. Elongation for 6 units. Now we're going to take examples of the mad in a letter, and the compulsory mad in a letter is sad. Sad at the beginning of the surah is pronounced as if there are 3 letters. Sad, alif, dal, sad. The sad here is having an a at the middle, and there is no word, so it is not a word-based, but a letter-based mad. And it is not merged in anything after it. It's a single letter. So we consider this as a light compulsory lengthening in a letter, and that has to be elongated for 6 units when we pronounce it like this. Sad. Now the last example is alif lam mim, where we have 3 letters. The alif, then the lam, then the mim. The last 2 of them has mad letters. The lam has an a in the middle, and the mim has a ya in the middle. So this mim at the end of the lam is to be merged in the beginning mim of the beginning of the mim. So the end of the first letter with a vowel, the lam, is pronounced merged into the beginning of the following mim letter. We say lam mim, but we merge the 2 in together. Mim sakina with a mim mushaddada, it becomes lam mim. We merge the last spelled letter of the lam with the first spelled letter of the mim, becoming lam mim. So because of the merging, we call it heavy. A heavy compulsory lengthening in a letter, because all those are letters, and it is to be elongated, to have a mad for 6 units, and we say alif lam mim. Now we're going to practice extracting the compulsory mad from the shaded verses of the Quran and try to specify its type and conclude the related tajweed rule. Remember, we're looking at a mad with a dark red color. Let's look here and we'll find al-ana, al-ana. This mad happens within a word, so it's a kalimi, it is word based, and it is compulsory, followed by a lam with sukoon. So it's a light compulsory lengthening in a word because there is a sukoon, not a shadda. Let's find another example. As-sakha. The alif here happens within a word, so it is in a word, and it is considered heavy compulsory lengthening because it's followed by a shadda that has an original sukoon. Next example is Alif Lam Mim. Alif Lam Mim. These are letters at the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, so it is an example of compulsory mad of letter type, and it is heavy because we have merged the meme of the lam with the first meme of the meme. Alif Lam Mim. An idgham took place, so it's heavy. Now in here, Kaf Ha Ya Ain Sad. There are three letters that has the compulsory elongation mad, and all are letters, so it is a mad in a letter, but it is light because there's no merging. There's no merging between the kaf and the ha. There's no merging between the ain and the sad. We pronounce it as Kaf Ha Ya Ain Sad. Notice that there is no idgham between the ain and the sad, or the kaf and the ha. Now we can summarize what we have learned in this lesson in one page. We have learned that the compulsory mad is a type of secondary mad, and it happens when the original sukoon is positioned after a mad letter. The rule is compulsory elongation or lengthening of the vowel for 6 units. And it is divided into two types based on occurrence: compulsory in words and compulsory in letters, where each is further divided into two types, heavy and light. And the reason that heavy compulsory happens in words is when the mad letter is followed by an original sukoon as a part of a shadda, while if it is not part of a shadda, then the compulsory will be called light. And in the case of compulsory mad in letters, it is considered heavy when there is merging, idgham, between its letters, and if there is no merging, then it is light. And we've given an example on each. Al-Haqqah. The shadda here is an original sukoon, and that's why the type here is word, heavy. Al-Haqqah. While in here, Al-Ana, the mad letter is followed by lam with sukoon, and there's no shadda, so it is considered to be light compulsory in a word. In Alif Lam Mim, it is heavy compulsory mad in letters because there is a merging between the lam and the mim. While in the example Sad, there's no merging, so it is a light compulsory in a letter. And that brings us to the end of our lesson on compulsory mad. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that بعونه وقدرته that the Quran Learning Management System, برنامج الجامع لحفظ كتاب الله, would help you, inshallah, to improve your tajweed and improve your tilawa and help you in improving your recitation and help you, if you want, in memorizing the Quran and to help you understand the Quran in the proper way. As we reach the end, we ask المولى عز وجل أن يتقبل منا هذا العمل. We ask Allah Almighty to accept this work from us, and we ask you to make dua for those who participated in making this work come to life and reach you. Hoping you all the best. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.